Welcome everyone, Big Road Travels. We're going to talk a little bit about by land, by air, or by sea. How are you going to travel? Summer's half over, depending on what country you're in and where you're traveling from. But let me give you some statistics. Um, about 8 uh, billion airplane seats will be sold this year. 8 billion airplane seats will be sold this year traveling. So that's a lot of airplane seats. About 82% of Americans will travel at least 50 miles from their home. Okay. And of those, about 8.9% will travel internationally. So, what group do you fall in? Are you going to be the domestic traveler? Are you going to be the international traveler? Either way, most of us have to go one of these routes by air, by land, or sea, or we just staying home. And let's talk a little bit about by sea. A lot of you are experienced cruisers, or you hear everybody say, I want to take a cruise. And so you have the aspirations to take a cruise. So let's talk about cruising a little bit. Some of the things about cruising you need to know: people cruise worldwide, not just in the US. I know it's popular in the US, but even before the US was US, people were cruising. Okay. All over the world, civilizations, people have been getting from one part of this part of the world here in Asia to the other part. Okay. There's islands, thousands of islands. Some of these countries have 10, 12, 13,000 islands. So they got from island to island to island all over their territory on a boat or a traditional boat of some kind. So, we didn't invent cruising, um, but we certainly have figured out a way to make it very, very special, and as well as the Europeans and other parts of the world as well. So, by sea, what are some of the things you got to think about? Well, 37.7 million people will cruise this year. 37.7 million people will cruise this year. Okay, in 2025. What are some of the things we need to look out for? Well, first of all, um, how you gonna feel? Are you gonna get motion sickness? You don't know. First time cruising for several days, so you want to be prepared. So do your research, get your medicine, your sickness pills, right? Cruise sickness pills, your bracelet for those of you that know you get motion sickness. Be prepared. Okay. Safety, personal life jackets, and a whistle. Some basics, fundamentals, and the more experienced cruisers know all of these tips of the trade. But there's some personal things you need to have, because that cruise ship probably don't have enough life jackets for everybody on that ship. If it's 5,000 people on that ship you're on, or 4,000 or 3,000, there's probably not enough life jackets for everybody, or lifeboats. So you want to ensure your own personal safety to the degree that you reasonably can. Okay. Now, here's another thing. Your uh, cabin location is critical when you're cruising. Now, my wife is a cruiser. Okay. Me, not so much, but I've been on some short ones. She's been on the long ones. So she talks about having the right cabin, because most of the cheaper rooms that they're going to be trying to book you on, you may have a pole uh, as your view out your window, if you have a window at all. Some of those portholes, she said, don't open. And in the event of an emergency, you couldn't even get your head out of the window. Even if it does open, you can't get your body out of it. So you want to think about your personal safety that way too, in the event of. You want your room a little higher up, not so much closer to the ocean, because you're going to feel a lot of that ocean movement. So the higher up, the better. Where is your cabin located? Even if it's higher up, it's going to be near where a lot of events are taking place, where it's going to be a lot of noise. It's going to be near the casino. It's going to be near the children's water park. It's going to be near the pool. So you want to figure out your cabin location so that you can be comfortable, you can enjoy your cruise, and you can rest. Okay, there's a lot of loud noises on these cruises, so you want to know where you are. Which cruise line? Now this is probably the most critical. Which cruise line? They'll give you a great deal to get you on a cruise ship, but remember, once you're on there, you can't get off unless you're going to go from a port and then fly yourself back to the U.S. or whatever country you're cruising from if you don't like what's going on that cruise ship. So just be careful of the cruise line. How many days? Where they stopping? Other concerns, the Wi-Fi. Can you get Wi-Fi? Does your cell phone work? Okay, do you need to check with the cell company about your cell phone plan on the ship? What's the reputation of the Wi-Fi cell phone coverage? Where are you going to get the ship from? You're going to get it in Galveston? You're going to get it in Long Beach? You're going to get it somewhere in Florida, Miami, wherever they get most of their cruise ships from in Florida. Where are you going to get it from? So you got to be careful there. And where is it going? Where does it port? And how comfortable do you want to be? Those staterooms are small. They are very, very, very small. So you want to make sure that you're getting a room that's big enough, that's a little bit higher up, it's positioned in the right location on the boat, away from a lot of noise. And if you can get a sliding glass door, a suite, or you can get a window that opens, that's going to be preferable. And these experienced cruisers know everything I'm talking about and more than me. Okay. And there's a million videos you can watch, but this is by sea. Now, I want to talk about the financing part of this. How are you paying for your cruise? Is it a prepayment plan? And please tell me you're not taking a loan out with the cruise ship company or whoever they use for the loans. Please tell me you're not doing that unless it's 0%. Otherwise, you need to get a travel credit card. Pay the cruise ship through the travel credit card direct, because that's travel. And you will get credit with that on your credit card. Okay. And you want that type of currency because you can use it for several different things. Okay. So please tell me you're not taking a loan out with these cruise ships through their loan company. Please tell me you're not. Okay. Please don't do that. Build up your credit through your credit card company and get travel points for that. Get points that you can use for anything. Restaurants, airlines, rental cars. Yeah, you want to be able to use that currency for anything you want. Also, what season are you going? Off season? Peak season? Are you taking repositioning cruise? These are all things you need to think about. If you're not going in peak season, right? So let's say maybe you're going January, February. Okay. Where are you going? What's the weather going to be like? How rough are the seas going to be? So try to do a little research so you can understand what you're getting yourself into. You're going to be out there 14, 15 days. How you going to do laundry? Can you be gone that long for Wi-Fi? So maybe you better start with a 3-day cruise or a 5-day cruise, right? Some of you love cruising. Cruising is your life, and that's a good thing. But you want to be safe, you want to be practical, and you want to learn from more experienced cruisers. There's some people out there that are professional cruisers. They know how to cruise and how to make it work for you. Now, you may need a cocktail. You just may need a cocktail to help you sleep, or you may want to relax. How you gonna get your adult beverages? Should you purchase the drink package? You're a captive on that ship. You are a captive on a ship, on a plane, on a train. You're a captive audience, and once they got you, if you want it, you got to pay for it, right? It's like the man said to me in Las Vegas when I went over to get the oxtails over there in the hood, and it was 6 oxtails, and it was about $22. 2 big ones, 2 medium, and about 4 little ones. And I was like, is this the right price? He said, yeah. He said, do you want them? And I never forgot that conversation. It happened about 10 years ago. And I remember it like it was yesterday. Because the point is, if you want oxtails, this is the price. Ain't no sense in you asking us the price. This is the price. Whatever we charging is the price. And the question is, do you want them? Once you find out the price, do you want them? You don't need to question the price. Just, this is the price. Do you want them? So when you go on these cruise ships, a lot of people leave with a large alcohol bill. So it may be better to prepay if you're going to be on there 10 days. Because that duty-free alcohol, they'll take that from you, may not let you open it. Because they're trying to make money off of you because you're a captive. So you don't want to be on there arguing and fighting with them. Or you got some people that's irritating you, and you really could just go get you a glass of wine and relax, but you got to pay, $20 for a glass of wine. So you want to make sure that you understand what you're going into, getting yourself into when you go by sea. Okay. The water pressure, taking a shower, look for little things like that, what people have said about it. The restaurant times. Oh, the restaurant times. Getting in line. You got to go super early. Are you going to just wait and eat that food, or are you going to have to book for a restaurant where you're just paying out of your pocket? So those are some considerations for the cruise line. Okay. Those drink vouchers. Now I've been told they give you the cheapest alcohol they can find. So if you got the drink vouchers, don't invest a lot of thinking that, oh, I'm covered. Ask what kind of alcohol. It's a premium. You get a little older, you just can't drink right good. You don't want no headache. So you can have your, a few adult beverages, but you want it to be good quality. Okay. That's what you talk about, the fine wine. You remember the illustration, Jesus' first miracle, water in the wine, but it was fine wine. They said, ooh, you say the fine wine for last. Most people give people a couple of drinks of the good wine, and then they give them the inferior. But you say the fine wine for last. So, of course, that was a miracle. You ain't gonna have no miracles on this cruise ship when you need your glass of wine and you want to just relax and enjoy your vacation or your cruise. And you pros, you know how to do it. So kudos to you professional cruisers that know the cruise game. It's important. Okay, that's by sea. Now let's talk a little bit about by land. Okay, now I talked about this in the rental car video I did already. So you have to refer to that on the rental cars. Now, by land, if you're 50 miles from home and you go by car, by train, by bus, away from your home, that's considered a trip. Okay, overland. Now, the best way to travel overland is by train. Let me just tell you, I've tried all kind of ways, from being poor to having a, being a somewhat lower middle class. Um, Bus, car, train is the best. Now, if you're in Europe, train is definitely the best way to travel. And if you can go first class, that's even better. Second class is okay, depending on what country, what route you're on. And if you're in countries, like Hungary, um, they second class uh, to Croatia is no air conditioning. Yeah, we're not doing that in the middle of the summer. So you'll find some countries got rail links to certain other countries where they've invested no money in the trains or the infrastructure. So you don't take those, right? So we went to Budapest, we enjoyed it, but we left Budapest, we had to go back to Vienna where they do invest money in trains, and we rode from Vienna down to Zagreb, Croatia by train. So you're going to be on train, first class, second class, third class. But I can tell you, first class is not that much. Second class is pretty much a staple. You can treat yourself to first class from time to time, depending on where you're going. It may be another $10, $15 more. It's worth it. They'll come, sometimes serve you food, or you can order food, order drinks. You're sitting in these nice seats. Some of them don't let other people come up there. They be trying to come up there to use the bathroom. They don't even let them come up there. They'll stop right at the door and say, no, you use the bathrooms in the cars that are provided for you in second class. Okay. So now here's the other thing. Bathrooms. 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 That's why you want to go train. Okay. We got caught going from Zagreb, Croatia to Belgrade, Serbia on the bus. And we was at the border about 4 hours. When you do them land crossings on bus, you could have problems on your hands. Now, sometimes it's the only way you can go. It's the most convenient way. And one thing about trains and buses, and you have to give them credit for this, you can bring your luggage. They not fighting with you on luggage, particularly on the train. The train don't even care what you bring. So people have them huge suitcases in Europe. In Europe have tiny suitcases for the plane. But on the trains, they be big. Like the people that go to India take them big old cases and whatnot, and chests. Some of my clients, I used to drive them to the airport. They have 4 big old chests of 4 great big old suitcases going to India from California. I'm like, why you got these? They say, oh, we bringing back snacks. They got to bring back snacks for themselves and for their friends. So, so the trains and the buses for overland, obviously car travel, we know, but I don't understand how it could be a vacation if you're doing all the driving. Now, we met some people from Canada. They were driving all over Europe. We met a couple. She was from Brooklyn. He was from LA. And he's used to driving, former CO, but he was driving all over Europe and he enjoyed it. Well, see, I was a driver, so I didn't want to be driving anywhere in Europe. And we took trains every chance we could get. We took a train. Now, when you're trying to go from, Vienna to Ireland, you got to take a plane. So, let's talk a little bit about airplane travel. Now, let me go back to the buses for a second. Okay, you get that bus. I don't care where you are. You could be in Paris. and you go down to that terrible bus station down there, and you get your bus, and you get on that bus, and you're going wherever you're going. Okay, it's reasonably priced. I get it. We did it. And you get on that bus, and that bus ain't got no bathroom. Okay, we already talked about that. Or you get on that bus and you're crossing into another country, and you're at that border 3-4 hours. Okay, I already mentioned that. Or you get on that bus and it's somebody on that bus that they're not letting into the country, and they won't get off the bus. Okay, so the driver's got to get them off the bus. He got to get their luggage off the bus, and they're left on the other side of the border with their stuff, and sometimes their children, because they can't enter the country. And so here's what they do. They come, once you're in line for hours, they come to the bus, they collect everybody's passport, the driver does. Or the driver may have a second driver with him, and that person collects all the passports, right? Sometimes they'll ask for your ticket too, but mostly they just get your passports. So they get the passport, the driver will have his manifest with all the names on it, and then what they do, they check everybody on there. All right, can you enter, right? We didn't have any problem entering, but there were people on our bus. Some of them had problems, and it had to be cleared up. And so that's why you could be at that border 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. Now, we were going from Zagreb, Croatia to Belgrade, Serbia, and there was no bathroom on our bus. It didn't work. Now, the buses are notorious in Europe. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you. So you get down there with your suitcases and all your stuff and your plans, and you've already pre-booked your hotels, and they're telling you this bus ain't got no bathroom. Now you got a choice. You either get on it or you don't. So you tough it out, and then he's going to stop at a place and you can use the restroom. And then he may not stop at a place when you need to use the restroom. So that's why the buses are not a great option. They're a cheap option. They're an affordable option. But I don't like the buses in Europe, particularly because a lot of them don't tell you that the bathroom does not work. And you get down there at that border between Croatia and Serbia, and you try to run across the freeway because the bathroom is on the other side at the border. It's on the other side. And you go in there and it's like a hazardous waste dump. Yeah, I would never forget it in my life how terrible it was putting humans in that situation. It was terrible. So I'm never gonna forget that. That's a mark against the buses going from Croatia to Belgrade, Serbia, and vice versa, from Serbia to Croatia. That should not even be humanly allowed for people to have to deal with a situation like that. A bus with no bathroom going more than 2 hours or 3 hours. You should stop at least once or twice. 5 hours, you should stop every hour and a half to 2 hours. It's terrible. So I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So Southeast Asia, people talk about buses, but I gotta tell you, you going from Thailand to Cambodia, land crossing, you may be there for hours and hours and hours. So most of the time, you gotta fly. Okay, now let's talk about flying. Train is much better too with land crossings than the bus. Train is much better because the train people are more professional. You know, they're more professional at the border crossings from country to country. We didn't have any problems. In fact, there were times when there would be people from their own country. They would check their passports. They wouldn't even ask for ours because they could look at us and say, oh, yeah, you probably Americans. And so once they checked us initially, we could go through 2 other countries on the train, and they didn't even check our passport, the train conductor, because he already had vouched for us. So that's why I like the train. More professional, bathrooms. And if you're in first class on the train, that provides first class, they serving you food and drinks. You got to pay for it, but they'll bring it right to you. I mean, it's very good service on there, and they got good stuff. They got the good stuff on there. And now air travel. Okay, now a lot of you go to Google Flights. You got a million hacks and tips, and there's people with a million views telling you how to get a plane ticket on Google Flights. Okay, Skyscanner. Okay, Seats.io. There are a million of these things. Listen, use them like you use Google Maps, right? You still got to do a little research. You still got to know what country you're going to. You still got to know what city you're going to. You still got to know the address of your hotel, right? So you got to do some work yourself. You can't just depend on Google Maps. Google Maps will take you to the back of the property where the river is. Okay, so you got to have enough good common sense not to trust Google Maps 100% of the time, right? Or the hotel or the airline. All right, you got to do some research on your own. Now let's talk a little bit about what I'm talking about specifically. And use all those tools. These people that didn't flown 100 million miles, they know something. They got some tips. Now you got to remember, it may not relate to what you're doing, but you can learn from it. Here's what I learned. I'm telling you, everything we have done. We rode the buses in Europe, okay, and got stuck at the border. I'm telling you what we've done, not what we read about, what we have been through. Okay, we've rode the trains all over Europe. We've flown on Ryanair and had them charge us twice for our bags, $370, and wouldn't refund it, and the lady kept swiping my credit card. Okay, we don't like Ryanair. Okay, so we'll pay more for a real airline next time we're in Europe. Right? We don't like that kind of stuff. They will get you. Them little cheap airlines in Europe are just like the ones in the US. They will get you. They will get you on bags. And let me tell you, if you buy a suitcase in the US and you think it works in Europe, it does not, even if they say it's the same dimensions. It is not. It is not. Those European suitcases are very, very small. Even though ours say it's the same size as Europe's, they're not. So that's just a tip for you, okay? And they will get you on the bags. You might get by one flight, but they're going to be looking to get you, okay? And another thing, it's more expensive to come back from Europe to the US than it is from the US going to Europe. They don't tell you that. So them one-way tickets, just make sure you understand what you're doing, when you're traveling, and how you're traveling. Now, let's go back to Google Flights. Okay, they're probably the biggest game in town. And it's an excellent way to gather information on all these airlines at one time. Skyscanner, all of these different places. It's good. Okay, there's Gold. There's several of them that I look at and check. Let's just go with Google Flights for simplification purposes. So first of all, you put in where you're going to be leaving from and just hit explore. And if you have flexibility or you don't really care where you go, you just want to get out of where you are to get away before you go supernova, on somebody, then what you do, you hit explore and you see where it's taking you, and then you figure out what you want to pay, and it'll show you, okay, I want to go to Spain. Now the people don't want you in Spain. Okay, so we ain't going to Spain. Let's go somewhere else where they want visitors to go. Okay. Oh, okay. Let's go to, you guess, anywhere you want to go, where they want you to come. Okay. I got one for you that you would never come up with. Tirana, Albania. Yeah. Go to Tirana, Albania. Ride those minivans down from Tirana to Flora. right? Stay with Diana in her hotel there. And Ben and his wife, they got a hotel there. And then you go from Florida, after you stay in Florida a while, go from Florida down to Saranda. Stay in Saranda. It's beautiful in Saranda. Then you go over to Bertrand to the UNESCO site. You see the ancient ruins there. And then you go over to Samil to the beach. And it's the Albanian Riviera. That's what it's called, okay? So now, here's another way you can do it. Fly to Tirana, stay in Tirana a little bit, catch a minivan down the floor, go back to Tirana, okay? Fly over to Greece, to Corfu, Greece, the island of Corfu. They got an international airport. Fly over to Corfu, Greece. Let's say you want to go to Florida. You just want to go to Tirana, and then you want to go to Samil. So you're going to skip that interior part. Fly over from Tirana to Corfu, Greece. Corfu, Greece, you can stay there. It's going to be way more expensive, about 5 times more expensive. But you fly over to Corfu, you can stay there a couple nights if you want. Or you go, which is not far from the airport, to the ferry. Get the ferry over to Saranda, Albania. That'll take you about 45 minutes on the ferry. Okay, they got a fast one and a slow one. Slow one gonna take you about 45 minutes to an hour. Okay, and I think it's about, if I recall, it's about $15, something like that. And that way, now you get to Saranda. Okay, you can fly from Tirana to Corfu, Greece, take the ferry from Corfu, Greece over to Saranda, Albania. Very affordable. There's a Lebanese restaurant there that has some good Lebanese food, particularly the chicken wings. They cook with the Lebanese spices over that fire. Oh, you talking about good. And then he'll give you some of that rakia that his grandmother makes. It's like a fine wine. It's so good, but it's not wine. Rakia is probably more like a really high-end gin. You tilt that glass back, you see the syrup dripping down on the side. Yeah, that's the good stuff. Okay, and it just helps you settle into your trip, clear up some of that. For those of you that can drink, those of you that don't drink. But it helps with a lot of the stress and your arteries and stuff. Then people live 100 years old. A lot of yeah. So there's that. Now, these flights. Okay, so you get on Google Flights. You find out where you want to go. You want to go to Tirana, Albania. You in Cedar Point, Iowa. Okay. You're flying from Cedar Point, Iowa. And so you got to get to an airport somewhere, probably New Jersey, Washington, D.C., JFK. You got to get to one of them, LaGuardia. And, or you could go from Chicago. You could go from Chicago, or you could go from Houston. But probably your best fares are going to be to reposition from the middle of the country or even the West Coast all the way to the East Coast. Now, they got flights going from the West Coast, obviously San Francisco, LA, places like that, and even some from Vegas, straight over into Europe. So it depends on where you are. Here's the thing. If you're in the U.S. and you got to get over to Newark, you got to get to LaGuardia, wherever, you want to look at not just the price, look at the plane. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about planes. They're going to put you on these 737 Maxes and these 737 winglets, and they're going to put you on these different planes. The bigger the plane, the better. If you can get on a bigger plane, the better. So here's what we're doing now. We're trying to avoid all these little planes. Now, If we got to take one a couple hours to get somewhere, fine. Right? We're basically between Vegas and San Diego. That's our stomping ground. And then my wife folks are in Atlanta, Georgia, so we got to get down there. Try to get on the biggest plane you can get on. Now you may have to pay $100 more, but listen to me. Get on the biggest plane you can get on. Here's why. You want to get on these bigger planes, and particularly now we're talking about as we go across the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean. You want to be on the A350. A350 anything, but the A350 900, they got the A350 1000. Get on that A350, that Airbus 350. Okay. Here's the other one you want to be on. That's 787, 9, 10, 8, 787 Boeing Dreamliner. Okay. You want to be on one or the other. The A350-900 or any other A350s or the 787 Boeing Dreamliner. Airbus A350, Boeing 787. Here's why. Those planes can fly at an elevation of about 43,000 feet. Okay. Those smaller planes may have to go to about 36,000, 35,000 feet. Those big Airbus 350s and 380s and 787, when you're taking off and your ears start popping and that plane is climbing in altitude and it gets to its particular cruising speed and cruising height, and your ears are killing you, your head feels like it's about to explode, the cabin pressure on that 787 Dreamliner and that A350, that Airbus 350-900, any of them, the Air 350s, 1000, whatever, them 787s, -8, -9, whatever. When you're on those planes, the pressure in the cabin stays as if you're around 6,000 feet. Okay. Those 777s, 777 that they're flying, the pressure on those planes are like you're traveling at 8,000 feet. The pressure. So you got 2,000 pounds of pressure on your head and your body that's taking those forces as they take off, right? That energy. It can take a toll on your body. That's why people feel jet lag. That's why their head be hurting, their ears be hurting, and they tell you chew gum, yarn a lot. Don't nothing help after a while. Don't nothing help, and you feel like your eardrum has just been ripped in two, right? If you're doing a lot of flying, you know what I mean. If you're just flying a couple times a year, you probably will have no problems. But if you're flying a lot, it becomes a real concern. So what we have noticed when we came back from Europe and we was on that Dreamliner, and when we went to Europe, we was on a Dreamliner, it almost feels like you are floating. You can hardly hear them engines. You don't feel a lot of the kickback and the thrust and this and that. You don't feel it. You don't feel a lot of turbulence. You know, them planes are so big that when that turbulence hit, they just ride it almost like a big cruise ship. It can ride through that turbulence, through that air. And the reason I compare it to a cruise ship is because that's what an experienced pilot told me. He said it's just like being on a ship, except you're in the air and it hit different waves of air. And that's how he explained it to me. I sat next to that pilot for about 5 hours on a flight, and I asked him all kind of questions, and that's the one thing I remember that he said. He also said he wasn't dedicated to no particular airline either, even though he worked for the airlines. He said when he flies, he flies. He's retired. He said he fly whatever. I said there ain't no one particular one, even the one he worked for 35 years. He said no, nope. I'm not gonna tell you his name or which airline. Now, um, on those Google flights, check the airplane. Okay, what you do, you just tap on that bar and it'll tell you the kind of plane. It'll say a A330, right? Or it'll say a 737 dash max, right? Or 737 winglets, or a A321 neo. It'll say all kind of planes, right? A 777, right? Now here's the deal. These 777s that have about 8,000 pounds of pressure, listen, they're good planes. They've been the backbone probably for the last 15, 20 years. You know, they're good planes, and they are workhorses because they're fuel efficient. They can haul a lot of people. They're long, um, and airlines love them. They love them. You're gonna find them coming back from Asia to the U.S. and some of them going to Europe. They've got extended range. Those ERs got extended range. So um, the airlines love them. However, uh, air aviation progresses just like cell phones and computers and everything else. There are planes that go faster, quieter, have less pressure in the cabin, um, more comfortable with the materials they're made. They're lighter, so they use less fuel. The engines are quieter, so you don't hear that whining sound. And it's like you're floating in the clouds. Okay? Closest to heaven, I'm gonna be. And I do a lot of praying when I'm up there anyway. But now, hey, I'm at 40,000 feet, 41,000 feet, no problem. Um, the A350s, those Airbus 350s and 380s. I haven't been on 380 yet, but those 787 Boeing Dreamliners, that's where you want to be. Okay, now here's what you got to do. You got to go on Google Flights and you check those different airlines that pop up, right? Let's just take Japan Airlines. From Japan Airlines, right, from Haneda or Narita, going to Chicago, right, ORD, Chicago O'Hare, they're flying mostly those 777s. Now, on the way from San Diego to Narita, I don't recall if he was on a 777, but it didn't feel like it. So I'm pretty sure we were on either a Boeing 787 or I don't think it was an A350 because it was still an older plane. So it may have been the 777s. And those planes are decent. You're running two aisles, right? So you don't just have that one single aisle airplane where you're waiting an hour to get off the plane. They're running two aisles. And one good thing about Europe is they exit from the front and the back. If you're in those back rows, they'll have a staircase for you to get on going through the back. And if you're in the earlier rows, they'll have a staircase for you going through the front. So I did like that about them. But in Southeast Asia, if you're traveling over here, it's a lot further than Europe. And so you want to be on a comfortable plane, and they got them. You just got to figure out which ones they are. So as I've been searching for our return trip back to the US, there's certain cities you got to get to where these certain airlines are flying the right planes. They're flying Dreamliners from Boeing, and they're flying these Airbus A350s. So you got to get to Hong Kong, Japan, Taiwan, Taipei Airport, Incheon in South Korea. So you may have to reposition yourself to get on the right plane, but it's going to be worth it. it's going to be worth it. So when you go to Google Flights, don't just look for the cheapest airfare. Look for the best plane. The best plane. So depending on where you're traveling from, you may have to actually fly to a different city to get on a A350 or a 787 Dreamliner. Okay. So that's going to be my recommendation to you experienced travelers. Get off those 777s. And there is a backlog. I'm not going to be critical of Japan Airlines because I'm sure they've got everything in their fleet. They're an excellent airline. In fact, my favorite so far. But what we got to do, these airlines have to keep up. They have to keep up. And what they need to do is put in circulation some Airbuses and some Dreamliners on that route that they normally just are sending those 777s. Now, here's the problem for some of the airlines. They have to train people to fly them planes. And they got to have people that can fly a 777 and people that can fly, an A350, people that can fly a Dreamliner 787. And it's going to be probably different training and different requirements. So, before they start adding a lot of stuff to their fleet, they got to have the right crew that can handle them planes, that know what they're doing, that ain't shutting off the fuel after takeoff. I don't know why that's not automatic, that once we're in the air, you cannot shut the fuel off. Unless it's an emergency and the engine is overheating or something. Other than that, it's just terrible what happened to our friends over there in India. So we can rule out things like that happening with the advancements in aviation and technology that we have. He shouldn't even be able to override that system unless it's a fire in the engine or something. And we're below, 2,000 feet, 1,000 feet where we can all survive. So things like that. But, what do I know? Anyway, the aviation experts will give us some ideas from around the world of how things can be better by air. But for you as a consumer, middle to expert traveler, I want to tell you, and for you newbies that's going to be taking domestic and international flights, while you're on Google Flights or Skyscanner or whoever, check to see what kind of plane it is. What's the seating configuration, right? Is it a 232? Is it a 343? Right? How many rows? Did they shove an extra 10 rows on that airplane? I mean, my goodness. That's what they do, these airlines. They'll have a plane delivered to them, and then they reconfigure it to add 50 more seats. So you don't want that, right? If you can be in the main cabin, that's where you want to be, in the main cabin. If you can't be in the main cabin, hey, some kind of premium economy, middle of the road, Now, listen, if you're on that 777 and you're on Japan Airlines, you're going to have plenty of leg room. I'm 6 feet tall and I was plenty of leg room, and they're going to serve you about 3 meals. So every time you look up, they're going to be serving you food and giving you drinks. So it's a great airline. It's my favorite right now. But I'm looking at Turkish, Emirates, Singapore. I'm looking at you. Now, some people talk, about some of these different airlines and what their service is. And, I did happen to see a situation on Kuwait Airlines that happened. So, everybody needs to take a breath. Just relax. This is the world we live in. People can take videos and talk about their life and their personal experiences. Some people, that's what they do to earn a living. I mean, if you're going to be in business, you can't be that thin-skinned, even if it's a complaint. There used to be an old saying in business, all publicity is good publicity. So most airlines are great with their safety record. there are some that are not so great, and those countries know who they are, and the facts speak for themselves. Training, the airplanes, training, training, training. And that's typically what it comes down to. If you got the right equipment and the person is trained, pretty much it should be just like driving a car. The person know what they're doing and they have experience. You can see people drive a car, they be in a tight situation. You couldn't see how they could possibly squeeze through this particular, and they've done it a million times. They don't even flinch. That's the kind of pilot you want, right? That pilot that could land a plane on the Hudson. And when you start talking about going by sea, you don't want to be on a cruise ship with a captain that ain't never been through no rough waters. What kind of captain is that going to be? You want him to be experienced. So, and he's got to get experience by sailing, right? These pilots got to get experience by flying. We put our lives in their hands, and these airlines, all of them, most of you do an excellent job. We all get to where we're going for the most part, and most of us don't know anything about flying other than we just pay for the ticket and get on the plane, and whether or not it's enough leg room in the extra row, and if they're going to serve us food or charge us for everything and charge us for the bag. Most of the pressure happens for you to get on the plane, dealing with the ticket counter and things like that. But for those of us a little bit more experienced traveling, the type of plane is important. So it's not just going to Google flights and checking for the cheapest flight. Yes, check that. There's a box for that too. It says cheapest. And then open it up and then look at the kind of plane. Then if you got a connecting flight, look at the kind of plane you're using for that one. Make sure you're not self-transferring to these airports unless you have like 10 hours or the airport is only an hour away. And if you're in traffic somewhere for 4-5 hours in Tokyo or Hong Kong, Bangkok, you don't want to do that. Kuala Lumpur, all these cities got major traffic in their center cities. In their city centers and their airports are all an hour away. Yeah, so add 2-3 hours of traffic, and then you got 4-5 hours to get on your plane. You don't want that. You don't want that because most of the time we got to go to the counter and check in. Now some places let you scan your ID and go on to the gate, but most of the time that's arriving. That ain't on departing. They checking you on departing pretty good, and you got to go through security. Sometimes you got to go through security twice. So you want to have plenty of time. So the particular plane that you are on, please, 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 here's why. You're going to be on the newer aviation aircraft. Okay, the newer, the better. The newer, the better. Okay, maybe not as a maiden voyage, but the newer, the better. The bigger, the better. Because the pressurized cabin at 6,000 is going to be better than the pressurized cabin at 8,000. You're not going to have as much jet lag. Some people say it's minimal. It's not. It's a difference, and you feel it. You can feel it. And as you get older, right, as I'm getting older, my ears, this one right here, took a beating. And a good thing my wife had some ear problems earlier, and she had some antibiotics, so she was putting drops in my ears for about a week, and I recovered. Everything is fine now. I hope. So the wear and tear, the G-forces, all of that on your body, the pressure in the cabin, yeah, your ears popping, your head feeling like it's popping. Those are things you can deal with, and for some inexperienced travelers, they may not even notice, right? But for those of us that travel a lot, we notice those things because we're traveling a lot, and we notice them. So single aisle versus double aisle, right? If you're on domestic, you're probably going to be on a single aisle plane unless it's a big plane. So you want to check for that. Do you need to reposition? Which carrier? Are you United? Are you Delta? Are you Spirit and Frontier? It's a huge difference in seat comfort, pitch, the width of the seat, not just leg room, the width too, right? Does that tray table come out from your arm? If it comes out from your arm in that exit row, it may not be so great, even though you got leg room. You know why? Because you ain't got no room to move. Whereas if you're in a regular row sometimes and you're on the aisle seat, it may be better than even that extra row, depending on where that tray table is. Because if you can't let that arm up for that tray table and you can't move and you in the middle and you tight like that, or you up against that window, it's going to be rough on you. So that's why you want to do a little research. And there's people out there that's had websites for years that tell you what the good seats are, what the bad seats are. So you look at 3 or 4 of those and you do your evaluation. And that's why you can't just take the cheapest seat on the plane. Now, if you 5'2" and you weigh 120 pounds, you can take any seat on the plane and you're fine, right? If you go in 2 hours, you can take any seat on the plane. It don't matter. You don't have to pay for a seat, right? Our rule is 2 hours under. We don't care where they put us on the plane. We don't have to sit together, right? We gonna end up in the same city together. So we don't pay for seats under that length of time. 3 hours, we look at it, we think about it. 5 hours, yeah, it's a difference. We're probably gonna have to pay for something. But other than that, so type of plane is a single aisle, right? You're on a 737, single aisle. Yeah, it's packed, and you at the back, and you're gonna be an hour getting off the plane, 45 minutes before you get down there. Your bag gonna be sitting there waiting on you, okay? And you're on Spirit and Frontier. You may want to pay another $100 and be on Delta or United, or catch one of the Asian airlines. One of the Asian airlines, okay? Even some of the European ones, depending on who they are, okay? And there's enough people with enough videos out there that can tell you about these airlines, so do your homework, all right? So the bigger the plane, the better. The A350s, them Boeing 787 Dreamliners, that's the right name. Now, all the stuff Boeing is going through, they did get that thing right. And as long as the proper maintenance is done on these planes at the regular intervals, and we gotta anticipate these airlines gotta make some money. They gotta pay people. They gotta do maintenance on the plane, and we want it to be comfortable. So when you reach a certain point, you realize, okay, I'm gonna pay extra, a couple $100. Yeah, I want to be in the main cabin. I don't want to be scrunched up in economy. When you're young, you're just traveling to Europe. You're going to stay in hostels and backpack. You don't care about any of that, right? You don't care about any of that. But as you start to advance in travel, you're not just going to the place. You want to get there and feel good. And you want to get there any way that's comfortable along the way. Okay, that's from how you get to the airport, when you get to the airport. And I'm gonna wrap this up. Here's how we do it. We have a travel credit card. I'm talking about my personal situation, so I can talk about my personal situation. So sorry, Chase, don't get upset. And my wife has American Express, so we use either one. Okay. We're at the airport 5 hours early, 4 hours early. We deal with the getting lost. We deal with potential of traffic, the car having a flat tire, the cab having a flat tire, the Uber or Lyft having a, we deal with all that. The Grab having a flat tire. I have contingency plans for all that factored in. Okay, so we get in there 5 hours, 4 hours. Okay, the train, 30 minutes before, an hour before. Trains are beautiful in Europe. You can get there 15 minutes before if you know what you're doing. Okay. You go to that lounge. Even the trains have a lounge. Some of the nicer bus companies have lounges too, but you get to that lounge in that airport and you relax. You go through that ticket security. You in the lounge in Sweden, that American Express lounge. Woo. And you order off the menu. They brought me some salmon there I had never tasted in my life. Ooh, it was good. Other than in Seattle, in the Space Needle, that salmon was good too. But you get to the lounge, so you're there early. You're eating and drinking. You're doing just fine. You're doing just fine. Now, at American Express Lounge in Denver, never again. They only let one person go through on my wife's card. I had to pay $50, and the only thing I could do would get a gin and tonic Hendrix. They had some old wheat pasta over there. They should be ashamed of themselves. That's according to my wife, and she got y'all's card. Me in San Diego at the Chase Sapphire Lounge, my wife was embarrassed. She said American Express should be embarrassed in Denver for that lounge. Come to San Diego to the Chase Sapphire Lounge and see what that lounge is like. I mean, we took pictures with employees. That's how good of a time my wife had. I mean, you order from the menu, get your cocktails. I think American Express was like one every 15 minutes. Chase didn't have no rule like that. You get your cocktails, they bring it to you, you go get it. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. They had 3, 4, 5 different areas where you could sit. It was just wonderful. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to trying out some more of those Chase Sapphire lounges. But it's how you get there too, right? It's how you get there to the airport while you're waiting 3 hours for your flight. The airline you're on, is it double aisle, single aisle? Is it an A350 or a Boeing 787 Dreamliner? And then when you get to where you're going, are you traveling by train? Are you traveling by bus? You're going to get stuck at that border 5 hours going from Croatia, Zagreb, Croatia to Belgrade, Serbia. Never again. Never again. So those are things that I want you to consider by land, by air, by sea. How do you travel? Big Road Travels. Keep up the good work, everybody. Thanks for watching.